Hey everyone, Justin here. Wanted to walk you guys through a brand new ZVM that I just set up for my lab, and I get a lot of questions about Keycloak and how we would integrate that to an Active Directory environment. So I thought since I have a brand new ZVM just started up, that I would take you guys through the instructions and show you how to configure it with the Zerto 10.0 U4, U5, U6 appliance. It's pretty much all the same for those. So let's go ahead and get started. So Zerto has a document out on help.zerto.com. I will put a link to it down in the comments. And basically, all we're going to do is follow this document. Starting in 10.0 U4, the development team did a lot of work to basically make this as easy as possible without, like fully recreating the Keycloak wizard. So what we'll do is we'll basically walk through this document here, and I'll show you how to get the certificate from Active Directory, show you how to install that using the new Zerto API, and then how to configure some different groups and role-based access control so that not everyone in your AD environment will be able to log into ZVM. So let me show you my environment here real quick. This is my lab, and basically just deployed this ZVMA right there. If we go over here, you'll see that it still says it's not configured, but it does show our IP address. So the first thing we need to do is actually set the passwords. So before 10.0 U4, maybe U3, can't remember exactly, we would ask you to set these three credentials manually using the command line or the API or one of the GUI interfaces. But now what we can do is we can actually just type them in here and hit set passwords. So this is always the first thing you're going to want to do. Let me go ahead and put these in real quick. And you can make these the same or different. It doesn't really matter to the appliance, but just make sure that you don't, forget them. So go ahead and hit set. This should only take a minute or two. This process literally is just setting the credentials. And then what it will do is pop up down here at the bottom and say that it is initializing. This can take a little bit, depending on how quick your servers are. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording here, basically because all I'm going to do is watch the progress bar. So as soon as it gets done, I'll bring you back in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and unpause here. The appliance just finished up the progress bar, and now it pushed me back to a login screen. This is because we reset the Keycloak password, right? So, and the ZAdmin password. So let's go ahead and log in with the credentials that we just set. And now we're ready to configure the ZVM to our vCenter our vCenter server. Again, you may already have this part done, which is perfectly fine. Like I said, mine is literally brand new. So I thought I would just run through the first part of setup. There's my credentials. Let's go ahead and hit configure. Again, this process takes a minute or two, but instead of pausing the video, what we'll do, let me flip back over here to the instructions, and let's look at the next part. So if we scroll down a little bit here, basically it says we need LDAPS setup. It's funny that it says properly. I set mine up. It's probably not properly set up, but it'll alert for what we need to do. The AD server should be reachable from the ZVM appliance. This is very important. If you cannot ping the AD server by name, this will not work. So I'll show you how we can test that here in a minute. And then, of course, you need a username and password that has at least read-only permissions to AD. I'm going to use my domain administrator account because I'm super lazy and I don't even know if I have any other user accounts configured in my lab. And then if we're doing LDAPS, the AD server must have a certificate with 2048 key. I assume that AD has that out of the box because I have not done anything special to mine, and it works fine. I've configured this before on a different appliance. So basically, the first step we need to do after we test the connectivity is to go and get the certificate from AD. So let's flip back over to RDP, and I'm actually going to switch to a different RDP server. This is my domain controller. You can see that it's AD1 zerto.pm.local. Just get rid of the web browser here for a minute, and let's go to the certificate server, which I believe is this guy. Yes. You can get to this by basically going in, typing cmd, opening command prompt, typing mmc, Microsoft Management Console. That'll open up a fresh MMC right here. And then what you can do is you can add in the snap-in, figure out which column it's in. Yeah, right here. Add, remove, snap-in. And then basically what you pick is certificates, and you hit add, and you say for my computer, hit next, local computer, assuming it's the local computer you need, and then hit OK. And then if you expand this guy out, you will see personal and then certificates. And then what we need is the one for this fully qualified domain name. The other thing that you can tell, let me just get rid of this window here so it doesn't confuse us. The other thing that you can look at is the intended purpose. You can make sure you're getting the right one when you find the client authentication and the server authentication. So what we need to do is export this. I'll show you where this is at in the instructions. Basically, come through here. This is what I showed you, how you get in there. Scroll down. Certificates, personal certificates. And then what we're going to do is right click, all tasks, export. So let's go back over here. Right click, all tasks, export. And if you have the instructions up like I do on another screen, you'll see that you need the DER encoded binary X509. Hit next. And then basically we're just picking a file name. So I'm going to save mine to 81 cert. And then you can just leave it that -CER. Hit save. Hit next. Hit finish. It'll tell you that the export was successful. And I saved it to the desktop, so you can see it right there. Right, let's go back to the instructions. We scroll down some more. We'll be able to scroll through some of that. But what is kind of hard to catch if you're not looking real close is step 9 in the first part, which is importing a certificate to Keycloak. I'm going to go ahead and click on that link. Takes over there. And what I'll tell you is the easiest way that I found to do this, if you have access to both systems, is just to open the ZVMA on your AD server. That way the certificate doesn't need to actually leave. We can upload it right to Keycloak from the Active Directory server. So let's flip back over to RDP. That's why I have Internet Explorer open. There we go. We can go to 192.168.50.60, which that's the IP address of my ZVM, and then /management. Log in there. Cap locks on. All right. Now there's no option in the GUI yet. We're getting there, but for right now, we do have an API to upload the certificate. And don't panic, it's still a GUI. It's just not quite as fancy. So if you've never used the Swagger API before, it's pretty easy. You just want to make sure you're in the configuration service. There are other API sets in here, but we want the configuration service, top right. Then what we want to do is click authorize. And you don't have to change the client ID. You just have to click authorize. You'll notice that it changes to logout. Don't click that. Click on close. And now we can actually use these APIs in here. The one specifically for this certificate is the green post API that says upload keycloak certificate. If we click that and then click try it out, you'll see this little box here that says add string item. And then you click that and it'll say choose a file. And it's looking for our certificate. And again, it'll tell you right there, it's ad1.cert-cert. Hit open and we hit execute. If it works properly, what we should see is a task ID. And we can actually, if we want to check on it, we can copy that task ID. And then we can scroll down to the task section APIs. And what we want to do is the top one, the get task for a particular task. Again, got to click try it out. Then we can paste in that task ID in the little box and hit execute. What that will return is the status of the task. So in Zerto, everything that you do is submitted as a task. And that way that job can run in the background and it doesn't need to sit there. Your web browser, doesn't need to sit there and wait on it to complete. So that's why you always want, if you're doing any API work, you want to save that task ID. That way you can go back and check the status of it later. As you can see here, we have the task ID, when it started, when it ended. Obviously, it only took about 3 seconds to upload it and complete the task. Tells you it was completed, tells you that it was successful. And so that means we should be good to go. Before we go too much farther here, let me just flip back to the instructions. You can see that basically it shows you exactly what I just did here. But basically it says, you click the upload, you send it your CER file, or you can do multiple if there's a chain, or you can do a P7D file. Once you do this first part, you do not need to do the manual option. This is if you don't want to use the web interface, you can upload that certificate via SFTP to the appliance and then run a whole bunch of commands to basically install the certificate and then restart Keycloak. But again, one API does all that for you. So it's much simpler just to use the API. Back here in the browser. All right, so we've gotten our certificate and we can scroll by that guy. We have installed our certificate in step 9, and now we're basically ready to configure the integration. However, like I said, let's make sure we can ping our AD server, and you notice that the ZVM is now configured, so I can click launch. And before we go too much farther, let's just make sure that everything is looking good, making sure that it's ready to install some VRAs. Again, it says need license. Thank you, Internet Explorer. All right, yeah, so we see my host. You don't have to have VRAs set up just to integrate Keycloak, so let's do the Keycloak stuff first, and then we'll come back and do some VRAs here in a minute. Before we go do that, though, let's jump into the console. I got 2 of them open. Close the other one. You'll notice that the red information stuff went away. That is only at the top while it is unconfigured. Once it's configured, you'll see that go away, and it just looks like a normal Linux screen. The login for the console is zadmin, and then whatever password you created during the initialization. All right. Basically, all I want to do is be able to test to make sure that I can ping ad1.zertopm.local. That's my fully qualified. So to do that, we're just going to jump out into a shell. So option 0 tells us that if we want to come back into this menu, we just have to type appliance-manager, and it'll bring us back. So we want to type ping ad1.zertopm.local. And I already configured my DNS servers during the deployment, so this should work. But again, we just want to make sure. So it looks like it is. My AD server is 192.168.50.2. So we are resolving the right machine. So now we can just type appliance, and type, if you get appliance, then just hit tab and it'll fill the rest in, and then it'll take us back to the menu there. All right. Let's go ahead and close the console. We don't need that anymore. We can leave that open. But really what we want to do is we want to click on the little menu up here and go to the management console. Or actually, I'm crazy. I don't want to go there yet. We want to go to auth. So IP address or FQDN if you have DNS set up for your ZVM, and then /AUTH. This is basically where all the keycloak stuff is stored. And actually, before I go too far here, let's flip back to the instructions. That URL is actually noted in the first step. So it's just HTTPS, ZVM IP, or fully qualified. If you see anywhere it says ZVML, our development team calls it the ZVM Linux instead of ZVM Appliance. So if you see ZVML or ZVMA, you can use those interchangeably. It's the same thing. It's just basically who's writing the docs. So we're going to go there. We're going to go to auth. We're going to log in. Tells you that the username is admin. By default, the password used to be admin, but obviously you set that to something during the deployment wizard. So it's no longer admin for the password. It's whatever you set it to. In the next step, and what we'll do is we'll just walk through this few steps here, and then we'll flip over to RDP and do those, and then we'll flip back and stuff like that. So once we get in there, what we're going to see in this little drop-down menu right here is 3 different options. We're going to have a ZSSP option, a Zerto option, and then I think it says default or something like that. The default is for actual keycloak. That's kind of like an out-of-band management. That would be like your local usernames and passwords for something like vCenter. You're going to have your Zerto realm, which is your usernames and passwords that can log into the Zerto GUI. And then you have a ZSSP realm. Most customers won't use the ZSSP realm. They will only use that realm if you're using the Zerto Cloud Manager. Most likely, if you're doing multi-tenant type stuff, that's when you would have that. So most people won't use it. So basically, we're going to get there, and then we're going to go to add LDAP providers. So let's go ahead and flip over to RDP, and we'll get logged in. So it's admin, and it's the password that we put in during the deployment. And if you notice, by default, it is set to the keycloak realm. Sorry, it wasn't or master realm, wasn't the default. So there's the 3 realms. If you go through this whole guide and you configure it to the keycloak realm, you're not going to be able to log into the Zerto GUI. So it's very important that you remember to drop down to the Zerto realm. If the screen doesn't say welcome to Zerto, then you're in the wrong area. So like if I go back to keycloak, it just says welcome to keycloak. So we want to make sure it says welcome to Zerto. If I knew a guy we could probably get that logo swapped out, and that would make it a little nicer to see. I'll work on that. Anyway, down here, what we want to do is go all the way down to user federation. It's the very bottom item in the list on the left. Go ahead and click on that. And what you'll see different, so you notice that in this appliance, we have LDAPS. It's already set up. I can add a new one, right? So I have 2 options. I can add Kerberos or LDAP, but there's already an LDAP in here, right? Let's flip back to the instructions and see what it says here. You notice in the instructions, it just has those 2 things to add one. If you are deploying an appliance before U4, you will see this. If you are deploying an appliance U4 or newer, you'll see that we've pre-configured an LDAPS already there. The big difference, let me click on this LDAPS, is you'll notice that we have pretty much all of the settings already in here. You just have to swap out some items like our AD server. Obviously, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to put in AD1.zerto pm.local. and then I'll have to put in some other info down here. But what you'll notice too is that if you go to the mappers, we've already created a whole bunch of mappers in here too. Let me flip back to the instructions, and what you'll find is that these are all blank. See your connection URL, it's blank. And if I scroll down far enough, you'll notice that we have to put in some mappers. And so like here, you don't have a Zerto login method mapper. You don't have a few of the other ones. So if you can, wait until you're on at least U4 or U5 to configure LDAP, because it's already configured like 80% for you. Obviously, if you can't upgrade to U4 or U5, then you'll have to kind of do it the manual way. But that's my advice: is try to get yourself to U4, U5. Let's see where we're at here, and it'll make your life a lot easier. So let's flip back to RDP. I put my domain name in. I should be able to test to just see if it can talk. Okay, it can talk to AD. What this test means is that I can ping it by name. The certificate is valid, all of that stuff. I don't remember if I enable TLS, does it still work? Yeah, no, SSL handshake failed. But if you leave that off and you test connection, it's still LDAPS. I guess it's just not using TLS. So disable. Yeah, okay. I'll have to figure out what the difference is. I'm not an AD expert by any means, but anyway, we have connectivity. Now what we can do is move on to basically the username and password that we're going to use to access this thing. And what I will say is, flip back to the directions here. The bind DN has to be in this format right here. So what I'll do is I'll copy this. Maybe my mouse works. There it goes. So I'll copy this, and then I'll show you how we modify it. And we go back over to RDP, and I'll paste that here in the bind DN. And like I said, we are going to, oh, come on, there we go. Oh, I'm an AD server. It's so slow. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So again, I'm just using administrator. Super bad admin here. And then I believe this is just users. And then Zerto PM dot local. And I'll type my password. I don't remember if this is the right syntax or not. We're going to try it. Nah, it doesn't work. So I'll show you a trick. I'm on my jump host. Let me flip over to my AD server. Like I said, I've ran this a couple times before. So let's go up, and you can use this command, and I'll put these in the chat or the description or whatever. Get-ADUser Identity, and you put the username, and then you ask it for the distinguished name property. And if you do that, and you hit enter, there we go. It will actually tell you the exact one that you want. So it'll go out in AD, it'll find you, and then it'll print out exactly what we need to put in there. So I copied that. Let's swap it in here. We'll see what's all different. Looks pretty close to me. Let's type the password again. Make sure that's right. Test. There we go. So now we have a green test. So next thing that we need to do is set up the user DN. So this is basically where we're going to go look for users at. I'm not an AD guy. I never have been. I always call one of my friends whenever I need, AD information. But you can just put this right to the users area, and it will try to import every single user in your AD tree. Probably not the best idea, but if you are just trying to get things going, you can do that. There's also a user filter down here. So you can, um, you know, also do some filtering. I would recommend it, especially if you have a large Active Directory environment. So I'm going to do the wrong thing and just copy this part of my bind DN. I'm going to put it in my user DN area right here. And this will basically mean that it's going to look at the entire Active Directory tree for users. Again, if you have a large AD environment, I probably wouldn't do this, but chances are if you have a very large AD environment, you might have a guy that, knows exactly what, like, information you should put in here. So let's go down to the bottom here. Oh, I thought there was another test. Probably not. So let's flip over to the instructions once we got the user DN in there. Yep. So, oh yeah, you can put a different OU or something. We want to make sure import users is off. I think we have that. Yep, import users is already off. And it says scroll down and hit save. Oh, let's go back over. So I was doing the LDAP section. It's pretty much the same, but it looks like there is an extra thing that you should probably also check for LDAPS. It says to use Trustor SPI. Let's go up and see if that's already checked for us. Use Trustor SPI. Yeah, it's already set to always. So again, instructions there for probably 10.0, 10.0U1, 10.0U2, 10.0U3, 10.0U4 for LDAPS. It's already there. Same with the mappers. So I haven't hit save yet, so let's scroll down. We'll hit save. It says it was successfully saved. Let's look at our next step. It says we need to set up some mappers. Again, our mappers are already there. I already showed you how to get to them. You just go into your connection and go to the mappers tab. We already have a login method mapper because we're running U5. And then if we go into, we can go into the clients tab and Zerto Keycloak, and we can go to client scope and select Zerto client dedicated. Again, if you are, let's do it here, but I'm pretty sure if you're running U5, you're good to go. So there's our Zerto client. And it says we want to go to client scopes. And there's our Zerto dedicated client. Click on that. And then it says in the mappers, we should have a user attribute mapper called user. Oh no, we're doing the login method. So yep. And I'm just scrolling through the guide on my other screen here. So this is where I'm following along. It says we already have that one. So theoretically, we should be ready, but we're not. And I did this a couple of weeks ago when I set up a different ZVMA. And I'm not going to lie, it was pretty late at night. I don't know, it was like midnight. And there was one thing I forgot. And if you actually read the words on the page, like I always tell my kids to do when we're practicing vocabulary, you'll notice that there's a little gray box that says disabled. And this one got me. Like I ended up going to bed that night. And I was like, I literally followed the guide to a T. I have no idea why it didn't work. But there was a very good reason why it didn't work. It was disabled. So way up here at the top on the right, the little slider, just click it and then hit save. And now it's enabled. So now we should technically be able to come over here to our Zerto environment. I'm going to log out. And I should be able to log in with my administrator credentials. Administrator. If you remember right, the local account is just admin. So this is administrator. That's an AD account. And there's my AD password. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. Okay. So let's go ahead and break everything. And again, I have two RDP sessions open. This is my jump box. This is my AD server. So I'm going to log back out, and I'm going to log in as the key cloak administrator. This is an important step. So, you know, basically make sure you do this. So log back in as your key cloak administrator. This is your local account. Let me go to the instructions. I'll show you what we're going to do next. We already verified the login. Good to go. What we're going to do now is assign roles and permissions in KeyCloak for user federation. The reason we definitely want to do this is because right now, if the secretary has an AD account, she can now log into Zerto. Probably want to make sure that she can't do that. Not that there's probably a whole lot of people in your org that just, sit around and look for Zerto and stuff like that, but, security, right? So we want to do a couple things here. First thing we want to do is make sure that we have at least one user account that has RBAC-based permissions. And we know that we have that. Let's go over to RDP. I'll show you here, but let's go to off. And again, make sure you switch it down to the Zerto realm. Go to users. My users. Let's just talk about it. There we go. So if you search for admin, you notice it imported my Active Directory user, but the one I want to look at here is the actual admin account. And this is the local admin. And if we go to basically the groups, you'll notice that we're in admins and we're in viewers. I think if we have editors and owners too. Under role mappings, what I always like to do though, if you are under role mappings and you click assign role, switch it from filter by realm roles to filter by clients, you'll see that a whole bunch of other stuff comes up. And what we want to do is search for Zerto. Hit enter. You see we have a whole bunch of Zerto client permissions and roles. And we just want the Zerto role admin. This gives us full admin rights, and we want to click assign. What that does is it makes sure that when I do the next part I'll show you, that I don't lock myself out of my ZVM. Very important. So I don't know. Let me look here. This is part in the guide. And there's user federation. And I think what it has you do. Yeah. So it doesn't actually show you where to do this part. Okay. Well, we should probably fix the guide here. Or I'm just scrolling too quick. And I don't see it though. All right. So we'll deviate from the guide here a little bit. And let's go back to RDP. So we know that we have our admin, our local admin user. We have it assigned that he is a Zerto admin now. So what we can do, come back over to our IP address. So go to the ZVMA and then come up to the three little bars in the top corner and go to Management Console and then go to Security and RBAC over here on the left. You'll notice that right now it says that everyone is allowed. What this means is that if you can authenticate, you are then automatically authorized. No matter who you are, if you can log in, meaning you have a valid username and password, you are now authorized to use Zerto. If you have a very small environment or if you're only using local user accounts, then this is probably okay. But once we want to start doing RBAC, what we need to do is select no access. So once we click that, we now have locked everyone out unless they have a basically a permission in addition to a username and password. So now we're enforcing not only authentication, but also authorization. So we can still do stuff because I'm logged in as my Zerto admin account. So if I want to, I can go ahead and install one of my VRAs. You can see that I still have permission to do that. I can click go. I won't yet because I want to show you basically our other account. So if you noticed before, I could log in as my full administrator username, which is coming from Active Directory. Let's do that again. Administrator, right password, click login, and you notice I log right back out. So basically what it does is it says, oh, yep, you're authenticated, but you're not authorized. And it never actually loads the Zerto GUI. It starts to, but then it checks the authorization and it's like, no, you're not even allowed to be. So how do we fix that? Let's log back in as our regular admin. This will just basically let me back into Keycloak. Refresh, make sure I'm good. Okay. So what we can do is flip back over here to RDP, or sorry, the instructions. So we've basically, where we need to go now is we need to add a group mapper. So what a mapper does is it basically, let me flip back over here to RDP. For our local admin account, we statically assigned it the Zerto admin role. You can do this for every user account if you really want to. So like if I search for admin again, I don't know why Keycloak does that. Here's my administrator user. You'll notice that if I come to role mappings, I don't have any explicit permissions to be here. I could assign, again, come filter by clients, type in Zerto, just to filter the list a little. I could assign myself like a Zerto viewer role. I could assign a Zerto admin role. I could assign myself individual privileges if I really wanted to. But you probably don't want to do that if you have more than just a couple of users, right? So I'm on CMH Jumpbox. Let's flip back over to Active Directory. I think I have AD. Yep, here we go. So here's my users and computers for Active Directory. Again, not an AD expert, but I am smart enough that I know how to create a group. Yay. So I created a ZAdmins group. And if we go into the group, you'll see that basically I put my administrator user in there. I could also create like a Z viewer group, or I could call it, Zerto viewers, or literally whatever you want. Doesn't matter. You just have to tell us basically what group to do here. And then what I did was I said Get-ADGroup, got the Z admins group, and I want the distinguished name. So let's go ahead and click enter a few times here. So basically copy this out, right? You want to get that distinguished name so that I can set up a mapper. And now that I have that, I'll switch back over here to Keycloak. Maybe get out of this. And let's go back to my user federation. Go back to LDAPS and then click on mappers. All right. Now, let me flip back to the instructions in case I haven't flipped around enough on you here. But again, you can play the video back, but all I'm doing is walking through the instructions here down in the assign roles and permissions in Keycloak for user federation. So again, I already selected the no access, but I made sure that my admin account had access before I do that. Very important. And there's a way around it, by the way. You log into Keycloak with your Keycloak username and password and then give yourself permission. But it's a lot easier to just make sure you give yourself permission before you lock yourself out of Zerto. So we're down here. We've clicked on our LDAP provider. That guy there. Ours says LDAPS, but and we go into mappers, and then we're going to add a mapper. This one is not predefined. So if I come back to RDP, as the guide says, we want to create an LDAP group mapper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit add mapper, and I'm going to say zadmin dash group dash mapper, and the group type is my group type. So, oh, there's group LDAP mapper. All right. So remember we copied our DN. Let me scroll back over. We copied this DN, distinguished name, for my ZAdmins group. And I'm going to paste that guy right there. And I think, let me double check here, but I think that's pretty much all I got to do. Member. So basically it's saying you got to be a member. So mode. So mode, we do want to change to read only. So we do need to do that part. User group retrieve strategy. We want to change this to basically LDAP groups by member attribute recursively. Probably don't have to do that. Again, not an expert, but it sounds to me like it's just going to traverse lower and lower through your AD groups if you have maybe groups inside of groups or something like that. Let's just keep you up to date where I'm at. So just followed through this add mapper screen, added all this info here, and you can actually do multiple groups if you wanted to, or you can filter by groups. So this is also good too. So if you want to filter in your upper level AD, or not AD, but in your LDAP settings that we set up a while ago, if you only wanted to grab certain groups to maybe filter it down a little bit instead of traversing your entire AD tree, you can use this same string in the LDAP filter. But yeah, so I have it pretty narrowed down. So it says basically once I do all that, I can hit save. Let's go do that in Active Directory. Save. Says we've done that. And now it says to click the Actions button. This guy right up here in the right corner. And it says, oh, yeah, hang on. It says click Action and then select, I'll just show you. It says click Action and select Sync LDAP groups to Keycloak. Problem is, I'll file a doc bug. So hopefully by the time that you guys watch this, you'll notice that the actions don't have that option. What you actually have to do is come back to User Federation, click on LDAPS. Oh, actually, no, you have to come to Groups. And there's also a good possibility I have no idea what I'm doing. What is that? Sync users. Oh, I'm silly. Is it in the actual mapper? Yeah, there it is. So it's in the actual mapper, and you want to say sync LDAP groups to Keycloak. And it says success, but imported 0 groups, 0 updated, 0 moved. However, let's still on my jump box, just to keep it easy. Let me come back over here to my AD server. I'm just using it as another jump box that because it's logged out. I'll refresh to make sure I'm still logged out. Let's see if we can log in as the administrator user. There we go. So even though it's taking me to the management console, what that tells me, if I go to the root URL, ooh, no, oh, never mind. I thought it was, but I guess it is not. What is still going on then? What did I miss? So, go back through the docs here. Go into the docs, scroll up, groups mapper, LDAP mapper, CM group. Oh, there we go. So here's one I missed. preserve group inheritance. On the docs, it's off. On mine, it's on. So let's set that to off. I don't know if that's what did it or not. Let's see if anything else. It says ignore missing groups off. Mine's off. Membership LDAP attribute is member, which is what we got. Membership attribute type DN. That's what we got. So same account. Let's save this here. Save. Let's try to import. Still says 0 though. Tell you what, let's take this out. Let's give it CN for a second. Save. Let's add a filter. Let's filter in. So to filter, I need to do that pipe and a bracket, paste in my admins without going from there. And close bracket, close, save. Okay, there we go. So I had to add it to the filter. So what I did is I put just users, I removed my actual group from the groups DN, and then I added the filter to here. So I'm importing this group specifically, not all my groups. Because if I imported all my groups, then basically I'd make everyone an admin. And it did say that it imported one successfully. So let's go over and look at groups. There you go. There it says ZAdmins. Just to do that all again, let's create a viewer only group. So there's a ZAdmin. Let's create new group. Zerto view only. And we'll say go. And then let's create a new user for Active Directory too. A lot of times we get asked, hey, can we get a read-only account for like a monitoring? So like if you want to do API stuff. So we'll just say monitor. Actually, let's call it API monitor. Like it spell. Give it a password. Oh, it's not my password. That's my username field. So API monitor. Next password. Super secret password. We'll uncheck that. Password expires. Saying they can't change the password. Next, finish. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my API monitor user. Member of. I'm going to say find. So we're going to do Zerto view only group. Add, apply. All right. So now I have a user that's in my Zerto view only group, and I have my administrator account in my ZAdmins group. And then what I'm going to do is come back over to user federation, LDAPS, mappers. We have the ZAdmin group mapper. Let's create a viewer only group mapper type, group LDAP mapper. The group's DN. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to copy just what I need this time, which is all my groups are in this users folder. It's probably not right, but again, not an AD expert. That's not why you're here. So we got that. We want to remove this preserve grouped inheritance. We want to scroll down a little bit. We want to do an LDAP filter. This time our filter is going to look like, and I'm going to put all so curve, straight, curve, close curve. And then in the middle of all that, we're going to flip back over here to AD. We're going to use some PowerShell. This time, instead of doing zadmins, we're going to get rid of zadmins. We're going to say Zerto view only. There we go. So now we got the whole thing again. I only need this first part though, because that's what I want to filter. Copy that. And I'm going to put that right in the middle right there. We want to tell it to do all that stuff and grab the recursive version. We don't care about any of this stuff. We can hit save. It says we saved it. Come back to, is it here? No, it's not here. Click on the viewer only group mapper, click actions, and then say sync LDAP groups to Keycloak. So meaning we want to pull them in, and we synced one imported group. So that's good. That's what we wanted. Now if I come to groups, we have our Zerto view only group here. Now here's the next part of this. Let's go back to the instructions. So now we have two groups synced. That doesn't do us any good right now. What we now need to do is actually go to the group, and we need to assign our permissions to that. So if you go down through here, new group, within the group, now we go to our role mappings and we assign it what roles we want. And again, should click that, sorry. We're doing the stuff like we did before for our admin user, but we're going to do it to this group now. So we're going to switch it to filter by clients. We're going to search for Zerto or Zerto-client, whatever you want. And then since we got two groups now, we'll do one group for admin and then one group for view. So let's move back over to RDP. So let's do the zadmin group first. There's our zadmin group. Click on that. Role mappings, assign role, flip to filter by client. Type in Zerto in the search box, hit enter. And then we're looking for Zerto role admin. Click, hit assign. That's all we got to do. So now let's go to Zerto view only group. We're already in role mappings. You can say assign role, switch it to filter by client, type in Zerto. And if you scroll down a little bit, there is a Zerto role called viewer. We're just going to assign that one. Now we should be okay. Now, so that's all good. Let's flip over to the Active Directory server just because the only reason I'm doing this, by the way, is I'm just logged in as admin here. And instead of opening like a browser and incognito and all that, it's easier just to swipe on the Mac here and come over here to a different window. So 192.168.50.60, management. We'll just go to the root. All right, ready to log in. So let's test admin group first. So administrator and the password. Let's sign in. It should sign us in, and we should be able to like do things too, right? So we still haven't installed any VRAs. Let's go see if we can do that. Yep. So we can run the install VRA thing. Let's log out and let's test viewer. Logged out. What did I call this thing? Is it like API monitor or something? Yep, API with two N's. That's perfect. Let's fix that. And we can fix that because all of our user administration is now in Active Directory. It's not in Keycloak, at least for these two users. So now I haven't mistyped it. That would have been horrible at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was testing this. API monitor, password, sign in. Now let's try to install VRA. Oh, can't. It's grayed out. So that means that we are now enforcing our privileges. So we've successfully integrated Keycloak with Active Directory using LDAPS. We have walked through pretty much this entire guide. Now, basically, we're just down here to testing it, right? So this is where you're basically just testing things. It's showing you how to do another group here, and we're pretty well good to go. So known issues. Let's see what we got here. Fails the following error. In particular, the user. Okay, so this is just by default with Active Directory. You need to have this SAM account name. If you have a different AD setup where the SAM account name isn't like your LDAP attribute for your user account, then you'll have to, change that. I think with Active Directory, it's always this, but again, might have to change that if you're running some other LDAP provider. And then this is just using a proxy. So nothing that I need to worry about. But anyway, so we successfully integrated Keycloak with LDAPS to Active Directory. We have created some groups in Active Directory that we are importing into Keycloak and then mapping some privileges. So now if I wanted to add another user to my admin group, I just do that in Active Directory. They'll automatically have admin in Zerto. Likewise, if I need to create like another account for like a viewer, say some auditor shows up, you can just create an Active Directory account, put them in the Zerto viewer account, and then they'll be able to log into Zerto, but they won't be able to do anything. We also flipped on RBAC enforcement in Zerto in the management console. So that way, not just anyone with an LDAP account, or not an LDAP, but an Active Directory account, they can't just log in and start basically being an administrator. Overall, that's it. So I think we're right at about an hour with me fumbling around a few times. So really not too bad. I'll probably do some other videos on things like single sign-on and Okta and some other ones that are fairly easy to set up. But hopefully, for the majority of customers who just want to integrate with Active Directory, this should get you going, and it should help you do it in a secure way using LDAPS instead of just plain old unencrypted LDAP traffic. Anyway, if you have any questions, either leave a comment, shoot me an email, do whatever you need to do to get in contact, Twitter, blog, whatever. So yeah, have a great day.